how to download free photo editing software. So it's called Gimp, G-I-M-P, and it's a free open sourced raster graphics editor used for image manipulation. This is going to be the first step to getting this program. Basically search in Google for Gimp. I will include a download link in the description, but you can just Google it. So we're going to click on downloads, which takes us to this screen. The current version is 2.10.22. That is handy to remember, because if you're looking for tutorials afterwards, you want to make sure it's 2.10, because some of the older ones, the features were different. So here you are given two options to download the right one for your operating system. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to give it a download. Let's do a direct download. I also want to introduce you to this second page, which is the linuxuprising.com website. There's a great article here which makes your Gimp have shortcuts similar to Photoshop. I think you should download this, because what it allows you to do is use the same shortcuts you would do on Photoshop but inside Gimp. So when I'm talking you through the processes, because I'm also a Photoshop user, I'm going to use those shortcuts rather than learn the Gimp ones. And also what will be handy is if you get this free software Gimp and you learn it with the Photoshop shortcuts, when you get a gig or if you get employed by a company that uses Photoshop, you will be familiar with all the shortcuts that are used, and that kind of sets you up for the future. So you can say technically you can use Photoshop as well as Gimp in terms of the shortcuts. The article is great, it explains exactly what to do, but the main gist of it is there's a direct link to a file that you need to save and put into your Gimp installation folder. I'll show you a quick overview of it later in the process, but let's save this file now so we're ready. So save link. So we've got that file which we will use, and I'll show you that in a second. Again, there'll be two links in the description, one for the Gimp download page and one for this article, and it'll basically explain why I'm doing this. It's quite a handy thing to have. And let's get on to the installation of Gimp now. Okay, so here are my two files. That one file which I will use to give us the shortcuts and the Gimp installation. So let's just click on the Gimp and install all users recommended. That's fine. That's basically recording how many users can do it. You'll get the Windows pop-up which you can click yes on. We're going to stick to English and do OK, and customize because I want to install it on a different path. Go next, and that is where it will install it. Gimp 2, so click next. And installing all those add-ons, yeah, that should be fine. Click next, create a desktop icon and click next and install. So let that install. What will happen is once that has installed, I will show you how to make the menu look like the menu I'm used to doing. So this installation is not just the installation of the program, but also setting up the screen to look a lot more like mine, because if you're going to follow some of my tutorials, it'll be handy to have the same screen I have, and also it looks a lot nicer as well. So let's let this installation finish and I'll come back to you. Okay, so that's just completed the installation now for Gimp, and we can do finish. Gimp we've installed, and that file there we need to copy, and we need to go to the Windows path which is mentioned in the article, which is basically the file that stores all the shortcuts. So you can see here it's the C users your username app data. So let me just go to that. So okay, so if you haven't opened the program, that folder will not be present, so you will need to open the program once to show that folder. So let's go to Gimp and open it once. So here's the little icon. It's like a little is it a fox or something holding a tooth holding a brush. So you'll see this goes through a quick setup phase, which is basically creating that folder in the app, which is called Gimp, and then 2.10, and you'll see that is the location. So that's my username there. Follow that through, and there's the file there. We're basically going to paste the file we made and replace the one that's already there, which will give us the Gimp shortcuts. So I'm going to close the Gimp and right click and paste and replace the file in the destination. So that's done that. So all we've done there is added that little file which allows the shortcuts to be similar to Photoshop. So that was basically that element of the process. So now I can close that down. We've done the download, that is fine, and now we can open the program. So next I'm going to show you the program and how to set up the This is normally how it appears straight away. So what you want to do is a few things to make it look more like what mine looks like. So firstly, there's a few menus. Let me explain. The toolboxes here. So those are tools. They currently, you'll see a little drop down, are grouped. So you have to actually click and you get multiple options within each one. I don't like it like that. I want all the options just displayed. So if I go to edit, preferences, it will bring up a little pop-up which allows you to adjust it. So look at these options here and you'll see one for toolbox. And we want to come down here and find toolbox, which is over here. And you'll see this here, it says use tool groups. If you tick that, you'll see straight away there kind of ungroups them, so it's got a bit bigger just there. And also while I'm here, let me just adjust this out so we can show you a bit more. Show Gimp logo, that's fine. There's a little box here which allows you to have color displays, because I want those icons to be in a color format, so that would be probably in icon themes. So yeah, so you see it's symbolic at the moment. If I do color, that will take a second, and you see those have been colored there, which you can't fully screen. Let me drag my screen down a bit. Display capture there. So now those icons there have become colored, and there's a few other options. We can visit this as we go throughout the guide, and which I can show you, but here I like to normally use custom icon size and do a medium size. Oh, that's large. Medium, because those are a bit more visible. I'll do okay there. And next you'll see here there's loads of little tabs. So this is your toolbar, similar to Photoshop. That's all your options, but I like to reset these in a way that it's better. So there's a little tab here which you can close. Tabs you don't want, that is an edit undo tab, like a history type tab. Let me bring that over here and put it there. So let's just do that again. It takes a little go, but when you get these bars, oh, missed it again. And again. No, missed there. There we go. So now I've locked that in there. Now, tool options is a good one, because whichever tool you select, for example, I select that, this is your options for that tool. Alignment, that's your alignment. Using a selection, that's your selection. If you're going to do rubber or stamp or anything, all those options update. So we want that visible in a nice place. So let me get that tool options and stick it over here and make that the first one. So my tool options is always selected and that's available for me. These care pointers I don't really need. I normally close that, which now allows that to be freed up, and now I can resize this to make it 2 icons long. So you can see that looks a lot nicer and easier and similar to Photoshop. That is your color swatches, which you can also bring up by clicking in there, but I don't like it being here. I want it over on the right hand side up here. So this last section here is, that's brushes. I normally leave that, to be honest. That I don't really use, so I can close that tab. There's fonts here. I normally close that because when you select the font tool, it will come up in the tool options, because that is universal. The tool, whichever tool you select, it allows you options here. Document history, not too fussy. If I want to add one back in, just click that and do add tab, and I do want the color tab. So that has come up there, and I can resize that by holding this and making it a bit of a square. And my layers tab is here, and channels is also here, and paths. So layers is over here. So that is a quick overview. I'm hoping that explains it. These are all your menu options here, toolbox. And next we'll go into actually using these tools and making something. So I'll show you like a quick workflow of me making a thumbnail, and it might be a better place to show you each of the tools and how they come into use. Okay, so now in this section, I'm going to show you the main options you need to know to be able to edit photos in Gimp. So on the top, we have a menu, file, and we can do a new canvas. So image, I like to use this drop down. There's a template here, select that and come down. Now this depends on your thumbnail. Do you want to make a 720p or a full HD 1080p? I like to do full HD 1080p because I can use that as a thumbnail in YouTube as well as put it on my blog. But that's not it. We haven't finished yet. Down here, there's an option for advanced options. This is while we're creating the canvas. Click on that. Depending on what you're making, I like to come to this bit here. It says fill with, and it says background color. Currently, the background color by default is black. I don't really want that. I want it to be transparent, and I'll do OK. Okay, so that is our canvas. Now we need to know a few things. If you're currently using it as a new beginner, that is an option to move. So you can see if you select it, it doesn't do anything, but we need to put something in here to work with. So right now on the right, you'll see I have one layer, which is a background layer, and that's transparent. So let's add something in here to be able to work. So I like to use default colors in my thumbnails. Like I have a standard color. So if I do file and open, you'll see there's some images here I've got which I'll use for this demonstration. So I want to put a picture into here. How do you do that? So file and open as layers, which will open up the image as a layer. And I want to use this image here first. So I do open, and it asks you this. I'm importing the image from a color profile because I've created that in another program. You could convert it or keep it. It doesn't really matter. I click keep. So you can see now here I have two layers. Does that make sense? So 1, 2. One is a background, which we created the transparent layer. I've added the new image as another layer. And the reason I added this image is I want to show you what I'm going to be working with and what I'm planning to do. I normally put a photo in there. I clip the photo to get rid of the background. I'll show you how I do that in this software. I put a box and some text, and that's my thumbnail. But firstly, I want to get my default colors. So how do you change colors? So I selected this color here, and there is a little color dipper here. There, I select that. So now I know that my background is that yellow color and the foreground is white. So if you installed the shortcut, which I advised in the installation bit of this process of Gimp, you can press CTRL and backspace, and it will fill the current selection with the color you have selected as your background here. You can press X and it switches. So you can see in the little menu there, just here, it's gone white back. So if I was to make white and did CTRL back, it'll be white. If I do X, CTRL backspace, as in delete, it made it yellow. So that's my background. So that was the main purpose of bringing this photo in, to be honest. Firstly, I showed you how to bring a photo in, and now I've shown you how to get the color of your background. So technically, I could delete this by doing delete on the bottom here. So now I've only got my background layer, which was transparent, but now it's become a color. Next, I'm going to add in another photo. So file, open as layers, and you'll see I've got two photos now. I tend to use the photos as, let's see which would be a good one. Let's see, I'm thinking about something or doing that. Let's try that one. So if I do open, use your mouse and scroll out at the same time as pressing CTRL, and that basically brings you in and out of the photo. So now you can see here, this image is too big. So let's grab the move tool, which is the little star kind of thing there. Press on the photo and drag it, so that repositions it. If you press CTRL and T, you can see these boxes up here. So now we can grab these, and if you keep one of the buttons pressed, see that it's kind of doing that. I don't really want it to do that. I want it to stay square. So how you do that is, let's undo that. You can hold down Alt and drag at the same time. So on the keyboard, Alt and drag, and then you can select the move tool again. And if you want, you can check these shortcuts. Let me show you. If I move that here, if I hover over here, you can see that is a W, is it? W. So if I was to come on, I don't know, something else, like let's do that and then press W, will that work? No, it was probably not W. Is it V? Oh, okay, it's V. So whenever you're on another option, you can use a different shortcut. Like if I press V, it goes back to that, you see. And then yeah, so I'm kind of happy with that. If I zoom in again, CTRL and zoom in, there is how big I will be. CTRL and T, which is transform. You don't have to use these shortcuts. You can use these little menus here. So you can see there, that's a scale tool. That's what I'm basically using. Hold down Alt and then resize that to make it a little bit bigger. And then I normally press V, which brings me back here. I want to be like somewhere there. So that's me adding an image. into Gimp, which I'm going to use right now. So next bit I'm going to show you is how to cut out the background and only have me. I'm going to compare this with two different tools, because on here they have this special tool which is called foreground select tool, or you can use a good old free select tool. I prefer the free select tool, and I'll show you why. I'll show you both options first. So let's do this one. With this option, you have to, let me zoom in a bit and reposition this so we can see it nicely in the center. Too far in. Okay, there. So now this tool, once you select it, there's a few steps in this tool. You want to select your image by going and drawing around your image. Let's just roughly draw around the image. We'll see how well this performs. Went a bit out there, but okay, roughly doing that. We've got a microphone there, so we'll see how it copes with that, because that's not in our scene. And then we go back to the start and then click on the start yellow. So that's rough selection. Press enter and you'll see it's changed color. And now it's going to ask you to draw the foreground. So you'll see that little selection tool options box there. That's quite important. If you selected it and set this up how I showed you, you'll always have that tool option there. So if you're not familiar with that, check that video out about setting up your Gimp so it's in a like nice understandable way. Okay, so now I'm selecting the foreground, and here the stroke width is down to how wide the paintbrush is. So let's make, that's currently 10, let's make it 200. You'll see that it's kind of made that brush bigger. So now let's make that low again, about 82. And now I don't like this, but I'm showing you why I don't like it. So now I'm going to select, and that basically whatever you select, it keeps back. So let's select all of that, and you'll see the amount of time I'm spending on this. I could have just cut this out using the cut tool, which I'll show you next. So I might, when I edit this, I might put a timer up to show you how long I'm spending doing this. And then we can make the brush a bit bigger. Again, if you use the if you set this up like Photoshop shortcuts, you can use the bracket keys to make your brush big or small. Because I've learned with Photoshop, I'm familiar with that. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, because in Photoshop you have the quick selection tool, which basically does this. So you'll see my brush is big. If I hold down the small bracket tool, it goes small again. So now I've selected that. If I click preview mask, it'll do a little bit of working out, and that's what I get. If I do select, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, it's like not excellent, but you know, we'll have to live with it. So right now what we've done is we've selected me. So I want to fill the background with a different color. So how do you do that? I normally do it this way. If I go and right click and then do select invert, because I want to select the background, and then we want to go edit fill with background color or clear. Let's try clear. So that's basically cleared all the background and kept me there. Now currently I still have a selection on me, so you can do CTR and D, which deselects it. So this is option 1, which looks kind of terrible. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but let me show you the alternative. So I think Gimp is getting there, but Photoshop has that quick selection tool, which is a lot better. I might show you the Photoshop equivalent and you'll see how much better it is. Okay, so if you have got Photoshop, the quick selection tool that we're comparing against is just here. If you hold it, quick selection tool, and then you come up with this option. Now this brush you can actually click and it picks colors, and you can alt click and it takes colors away. So I'm just selecting the options here and adding on what I want to keep and not adding what I don't want. You can adjust the size of the brush, and because I use this quite a bit, I can normally get a decent cut away from the background. I normally tend to do refine edges, and I adjust the radius just slightly and also make it a little bit smooth. I give it a little bit of a feather. And if you want to shift edges, if you had a big difference in background, you can do OK, CTR and J, and then that is your image cutout without the mic. And that's, well, it's Photoshop. The equivalent of that was the select tool in Gimp. So that's the second option, and we're going to use, instead of the foreground select tool, I'm going to use the free select tool. So let's see how much better this one is. If anything, CTRL and zoom in, and you can use spacebar. So I'm gonna start selecting, wham, bam, and just go around. So you know that stuff where I basically made a free selection around me, then I use a paintbrush to paint me out. I don't know if that was wasting time, because I could have just done this. So if I press space, I can readjust. If you installed the Adobe thing that I talked about, which is basically the Photoshop file, which is provided free on that Linux forum, and it allows you to map the Photoshop keys onto Gimp. So if you used Photoshop in the past, you can use the same shortcuts on Gimp, which makes it a hell of a lot easier rather than learning everything and clicking on the menus, because otherwise I'll have to kind of say to you, oh, actually you have to click here, click there. But if you're following along, let's see how long this takes. So I'm basically moving around the screen, space and move the screen, and then let's get all the way around here. I'm not doing it perfectly because I'm basically don't want to spend as much time on it. It should be quick, because if you remember in Photoshop, it used to be a quick selection, which I will show you. Let's zoom out a bit and let's just connect these up again. So there we go. Now right click, try this way, edit. Yes, so see the same right click on the image is the same as edit over here. So now we want to invert selection. So view, select, invert, edit, clear, which has got rid of the background, but it's made it white, which I don't want. So let's do edit, fill with background color, deselect. Now, okay, so now you judge it. That is, let me zoom in a bit. Still not perfect. So see all that. It's not perfect. But Gimp, there are going to be limitations. You have to play with it and learn it. But that was the tool, which was the free select tool. And the other one was the foreground select tool. Let me show you the foreground select tool. That's the foreground versus that. So that's the two compared. Now I reckon that is passable for a thumbnail. So next you want to be adding text on here. So right now we have some layers: background layer, image layer. Ideally that image layer, you know what, let me do this properly. Let's go and invert selection. I want to get rid of, okay, that was too far. I was already, that was a nice. So fit with foreground color, no, free select, invert selection, and then I want to clear. Can you just press delete? Yeah, see that you'd think you can delete the background because I want it to be empty, as in transparent. Let's get rid of the background and let's right click, edit, clear. Yes, okay, edit clear worked this time. Last time I had to fill it yellow to give you a quick example. CTRL and D is deselecting it, and then let's bring the background back on here, just there. So that is undo history tab is handy for that kind of thing. You can kind of go back to the point where you wanted to go back to tool options here, and now the fun begins. So let's do a new layer just here. I'm hoping you can see that, which you cannot, which means I need to readjust this window here. Display capture, okay, just on the bottom. So you'll see just there, kind of, it says create a new layer. Click on that. I'll call this text, go T. I want it to be about there, so we'll do, what was I going to call it? Main Gimp tools. GIMP-TOOLS, Gimp tools. And you know what? I want it to be spaced. So let's go back there and press enter. Do CTRL and A, which selects all. Let's make it bold. Let's come here. Can I put impact in there now? Why doesn't it let me type? Impact. Yeah, I was hoping it'll give me the impact font, but it doesn't. There's a lot of fonts here. It's just the one that I want can't be typed in. Oh, let's just do Arial bold. Okay, and now here you can see it's 62. Let's make that 200. Enter. Go here. Okay, so now here is my text layer. I select the tool here, move tool, and then what I normally tend to do is right click on the text and do colors, filters is the one we're looking at, filters. And then if you go to drop shadow, which would be in light and shadow, and then drop shadow, this is similar to the Photoshop setting where you can add like a border. So now you can see this drop shadow menu comes up. So I save defaults. So in this preset there's nothing listed. So what I like to do is I like to find 0 grow radius. As I increase that, and then opacity, I want to bring that to full. Now grow radius 9. See, whatever number that is will be how thick the outside will be. So you can see the grow radius is square, blur radius is 10. I don't want blur, go right down. So that's basically a long way of getting outline of a text, but that's how you do it in Gimp. Grow radius, let's make that a bit thicker. Okay, yeah, 7's about nice. So that lets you see that text clearly. And what I'll do is I'll save it. So here you can see you can do a plus, and I'll call that outline. So when we come to use it in future, all you do is click on the drop down and select outline, and you get the same outline every time. So I'll do OK, and then CTRL and T, and I want to make that a little bit bigger. So that's a transform tool. Enter, and let's grab that and bring it down here. I want to put a couple of boxes behind it. So if you're familiar with layers, you basically want to use that and put a layer behind it. So if I do add a new layer, call it background, and do OK, that's a background. So remember, this is a template we're making, which will be a default. So every time you can just come in here and change bits of it and put new pictures in and out. So you don't have to create it from scratch again. We're basically making it from scratch and saving it as a template later on. So I've got a background. Let's go to the select tool. Let's go and select a little box, and then right click, edit, fill with. Okay, so right now I want to fill it with the color, but that is yellow. So let's make that yellow black, and do OK, and right click, edit, fill with background color, which is there, and then you can do CTRL and J, which duplicates the layer, and then I can drag that other box down here. Okay, so that's how it looks right now. You can deselect it. Okay, so that is a quick look at setting up a thumbnail. It took a little bit of time, but you need to adjust with the tools and settings, and that is what you can end up with.